the American Revolution Museum at Yorktown. I'm here with another unboxing video. We've got tons more seeds, not just for our spring planting season, but for pretty much the whole planting year at our Revolution era farm. So if you like opening packages and you like gardening and you want to see some of the stuff that we'll be planting this year, jump right in with us. Okay, so the first seed company that we're going to be opening up is Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, and we like working with them because they're located right here in Virginia. So we like helping our fellow Virginians, and we've got quite a few different things coming in from them, stuff that will be planted all throughout the year, like I was saying. And so one of the first things is a fava bean. A broad Windsor bean is the type of fava beans that we plant, and they're pretty cool because in this area we can plant them in November and they'll stay dormant in the soil and they'll start to sprout when the weather warms up in late winter, early spring. And they're really cool to see their whole flowering process. They make beautiful flowers, really cool beans, no pun intended, and they're a really fun thing to grow. And one of the things that I like about the packaging is that it tells you the germination rate for what you're growing. So these broad beans say 98% germination rate for these, and it also gives you the year. So if you don't plant everything in one year to another, you'll know these were packaged for 2022. You can't expect the same rate of germination. If you save them for 5 years, they're probably not going to be that 98% germination 5 years from now. So yeah, those are really cool. And some of the other seed packs have different artwork on them. So this is lacinato kale, or sometimes it's called dinosaur kale, and it's got an artist rendering of what that kind of kale looks like. So that's pretty cool. Another really good thing about this company and their packaging is that right on the back it gives you the soil temperature, sowing depth, the spacing, the row spacing, how much lighting it needs, even how much time it needs to germinate in the soil before it starts to come up. And not all seed companies do that. You would think that that's a common sense thing to put on your seed packs, but not everybody does it. And with the kale, it even says on the package that it's heirloom from the 1700s, and we love that. We want to make sure as much as of the stuff that we grow in our garden is from the 1700s as possible, but there's just some things that we know that they had, but the precise varieties that they had do not exist anymore, or at least not commercially. So whenever we can brag and say that we're planting something that we know for sure they had in the 1700s, we love doing that. So this type of kale has kind of a ruffled edge to the leaf, but it's long and spiky compared to a lot of the other kale that you see. So I'm really excited to be growing this year. This is the first year we'll be growing it. All right, so I've got some old-fashioned ragged edge mustard. It gives the germination rate on there just like the other ones. Lots of useful tips and tricks for planting, and we've got a bunch of packets of this because it's something that we'll plant spring, fall, and maybe even some to winter over in the Enslaved folks garden that we have. So we got a bunch of packs of that for that reason. All right. So another thing that'll be going in the Enslaved folks garden this year is the whippoorwill southern peas. Southern peas are kind of a catch-all term for cow peas or black-eyed peas. And there are different varieties that have slightly different flavors, but one of the reasons why they're planted in our example of what an enslaved person's garden would have looked like is the fact that cow peas, field peas in general, came from Africa, and that's why you would have seen it mostly in their garden at the time, and you would not have seen it really that much in an English person, a free person's garden. And so that's one of the things that we'll be growing there. In addition to the whippoorwill variety of southern peas, we also have iron and clay. Those are another one. And they're really hardy, they're really easy to grow. So if you enjoy black-eyed peas and you're just getting into gardening and you want something easy, these grow in pretty much the hottest point of the year, and they're essentially a type of bean. Any type of bean is pretty easy to grow, but black-eyed peas are tasty and easy to cultivate. All right, so got blue cocoa beans. Cocoa makes it sound really exciting, like we'll be making chocolate. I don't really know where that name comes from, but these are essentially purple snaps, like purple string beans. And they taste a lot like the green string beans that you get. So these have that beautiful artwork on the front specific to this plant. They also have that nice chart on the back for when to grow it and how to grow it and all of that. So really nice. If you're interested in organic seeds, Southern Exposure has a lot of organic seeds, and on their website, they show you which ones are organic and which ones are not. So the ones in this batch that we got that are organic are the kale, the blue cocoa, and some of our flowers for our herb and dye garden. So the first one is feverfew, and it's a part of the chrysanthemum family. But just like the name implies, it had medicinal usage, so it would be in our area of our garden that we reserve for our culinary and medicinal herbs. So it is something that they would have definitely used medicinally. And it does say on the back, take care because feverfew can be invasive in some areas. So I would definitely look into that before you plant it where you live. But it does have these pretty little white, almost daisy looking flowers. The scientific name makes it sound like it's part of the chrysanthemum family, so they are pretty and useful. And another flower that we grow is called calendula. And so calendula is something that could be used as a dye in the 18th century. It is something that today you sometimes see in natural skincare. It's like a calming effect for the skin. So if you have like sensitive skin and stuff like that, you could see it in lotions, creams, salves, that sort of thing. And they have these pretty yellow blossoms like you see on the packaging. So these are, it even says that you can eat them in salads. I can't say as I've ever tried that, but it is something that might be interesting to try if you want to grow it at home. So that's all for the Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. We've got a couple more that, as far as a couple more seed sources that I'll be willing to share with you today. Okay, so let's pull another package out of my bag of tricks over here. Oh, this is another one of my favorite seed vendors that we use. And I've seen a lot of other people that are on other types of social media, and they're really into gardening and they share what they know with other people. If you're into heirloom seeds, hard to find heirloom seeds, Baker Creek is a good spot. And I even love the mailer that this comes in because it has the logo and all that stuff. But this specific packaging highlights one of their seeds, one of their rare seeds that they're promoting. And if you look on the back, it promotes Chinese pink celery. And it's got this beautiful artwork on it. And it says the world's most beautiful and tasty celery from ancient China. So we are a Revolution era farm. We're not growing celery from ancient China, but if you're growing your own garden and it's something you're interested in, just different rare types of things, they have lots of variety on their website. So let's see what we've got. If you like getting freebies for being a valued customer, they sent us some free blue spiced basil and some free cucumber seeds. And we didn't even have a huge order. This is all we ordered from them this year, and that's not an enormous seed order. And they gave us 2 free packs of seeds, so we appreciate them for that. I've got essentially just some French beans is what they would have been called in the colonies at that time. This specific variety of green beans is called Kalima or Kalima. And so this is one of those that I don't know specifically if Kalima beans were in the 18th century, but generally they're referred to in a lot of their seed catalogs of the time, so to speak, the advertisements that they had for ordering seeds. They called these kind of beans string beans or snaps. They called them French beans. So lots of French beans were available. Do I know specifically if Kalima beans were available? No, I do not. And so this is the first time I've gotten this specific variety, but we grow some form of French bean in our English garden pretty much every year. And it has a really useful chart on the back, similar to the ones from Southern Exposure, that gives you all the pertinent information, like it's not frost hardy, minimum sun, seed depth, temperature that it needs, germination rate, that sort of thing. And so I'm excited to try those this year. My friend Gretchen, her favorite thing that we grow in the garden is a scarlet runner bean. And so scarlet runner beans are beautiful. A lot of people grow them today because they have this pretty red flower that you can see on the packaging. And it actually grows an edible bean. It's, I would compare it a little bit to the shape of like a butter bean or a baby lima bean, but they are reddish. You know, they have that kind of scarlet look to them. And so they're beautiful to have, even just for their looks, but they're also good to eat, and I think that's really cool. And they have that same useful information that you need for planting right on the back. All right, so we've got a very French sounding type of cabbage. They had two broad categories of cabbage that were common in the time period, and they're still common today. You have like your regular heads of cabbage, and this kind of what's known as an ox heart shape for the heads was more common than the super perfectly round ones that you see in the supermarket today. They also had Savoy cabbage, like the curly leaf cabbage. As far as, you know, super specialized sorts of like Asian cabbages and stuff, I don't know that those were common in the colonies. It's mostly going to be just regular everyday cabbage for the most part. And so I'm excited to try this because usually the type of head cabbage that we get is similar in shape. That ox heart shape is not the Coeur debut. It is one, I don't want to give it away, but you'll see it in one of our other seed orders. And it's we have a lot of success with it. And something that I didn't know about planting cabbages until I got here is that if you get not loose leaf cabbage, if you get the cabbage that is supposed to form heads and it gets attacked by bugs, for us we have a hard time with cabbage moths. If it gets attacked by those at a certain point in its growth process, it will never ever form a head of lettuce. It will cabbage. It will never ever form a head of cabbage. It will just stay loose leaf, even if it's a variety that typically forms pretty heads like this. So if you're growing cabbage and you're wondering why it's not forming heads, that's why. Something is attacking it in its infancy and it's not able to overcome being injured, and so it'll just kind of putter along and give you those loose leaves, but nothing big and pretty like this. You got to protect it from bugs if you want this. So that's good to know. All right, this one's exciting right here because this one's called Art Combs Ancient Watermelon, and it's one of the oldest seeds for watermelon that's ever been discovered. It says that it was found in a clay pot in a cave in the southwest USA. So it was kind of an archaeological find, and it's so old they don't even know how many thousands of years old those seeds were, but they got enough of them to actually germinate so that they can perpetuate this probably long extinct prior to that, this type of watermelon. And you can see by the picture they're a long watermelon, not so much round, but they're really long and kind of narrow like that instead of the big, huge watermelons that you see in the summertime. So this will be exciting. Typically, this is something that we grow in the enslaved folks' garden because they are known for planting melons of lots of different varieties, musk melons, watermelons, that sort of thing. There's historical accounts of them growing that in their gardens at the time. So that's something that we'll be doing. Got some poppies for our medicinal herb garden. A lot of people think that poppies of all sorts could be used to make opioids. That's not really the case. There's a very specific type of poppy you have to grow to make opioids, and that is not this one. We are not in the business of making drugs. So what you would get out of this medicinally is a much more watered down sort of almost like a Tylenol. out of this is what you would get. You would not get those heavy duty sorts of painkillers that you would get out of the sort of poppies that produce opioids. So this would be grown as a medicinal, but not the type of like Chinese opium that you might associate with the 18th and 19th century. That's not what this was meant for. So don't get it twisted. We don't do anything bad around here. All right, so the rest of the stuff that I have here is going to be for the Enslaved Folks Garden. We've got some Brandywine tomatoes. They are an heirloom type of tomato. In our time period, tomatoes are not something that English folks love yet, so we don't grow this in the kitchen garden for the free farmer. We exclusively grow tomatoes in the Enslaved Folks Garden because they are known to have enjoyed tomatoes for the most part, much more so than the free farmer would have done, the guy that's of English descent. They knew that they were not poisonous. That's kind of a myth that's perpetuated, like maybe in the Jamestown days, they might have still thought that they were poisonous. They just hadn't developed a taste for them yet. It wasn't part of their culinary tradition, and it wasn't part of what they were used to. And as we know today, if you are not a fan of trying new things, sometimes it can be scary, sometimes you don't develop a taste for it, and other times you're like, wow, I really wish I'd tried that earlier. It's amazing. So glad that somebody took a chance on tomatoes, because tomatoes are really good. All right, so one of the things that we had a hard time sourcing this year are Scotch bonnet peppers. And so these are a variety that are called sweet bonnets. They're not as spicy as Scotch bonnets, but they will give us the same shape. So when we are showing them to visitors, we can say, hey, this is what Scotch bonnets look like. Hot peppers, which the Scotch bonnet would have been, are something that you would typically, again, see more so in the Enslaved Folks Garden, because at the time, English folks did not care for anything spicier than black pepper. And just a broad generalization there. I know, but just in general, that's, if you look at some of the written recipes that were aimed more at English folks, you don't see a ton of hot and spicy stuff. And in the culinary tradition that we have that comes from West Africa and Central Africa, and the stuff that is now a part of Southern cuisine, we know that people that were enslaved at the time, they tended to have a little bit more of a broader palate in terms of spiciness. So typically we grow spicy peppers in their garden. And this one, although it's not going to be as spicy this year because we just couldn't find it, it will give us the same kind of shape to show what it would look like. And it's saying that this is much more mild than a jalapeno. So this is definitely a sweet pepper, but it'll still give us the same look that we're looking for to show in the garden. So yeah, they call them a Scotch bonnet or a sweet bonnet because they have that kind of like a shape that you'd see like a Scotsman wearing for his hat. So they're pretty cool, and they are related to habaneros. If you're a fan of habaneros today, the Scotch bonnets, the really spicy ones, are about the same spice level as a habanero. All right, we've got two types of okra. Motherland okra is one that I'm excited to grow this year because this one came directly from West Africa, and it is something that is brought to us by a guy named John Jackson, and he distributes seeds through Baker Creek. And he has a garden. He is a veteran, and if I'm not mistaken, he does a lot of programs with veterans to help them recover from being overseas and stuff like that. So he supports veterans and teaches them how to garden and stuff like that, and I think that's really cool. So this okra will be grown in our Enslaved Folks Garden. And another variety of okra that I'm trying this year is Louisiana long pod, because sometimes it's easier to cook with the long skinny variety instead of the short chunky variety. We're gonna try a little bit of both and see what happens this year. So that's all we have from Baker Creek, and I've got a couple more varieties of seed vendors. If you are still interested, we'll keep going. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is, for today, I'm going to go over one more small package here of seeds, and we have the really, really big order that we usually get, and so I might make that into a separate video. So let me know in the comments if you're really interested in this as like a series talking about seeds and what we're going to be planting. If you want to learn more about gardening, it's something that we can address more on our channel. Because if it's not something you're interested in, maybe we'll switch gears and we'll talk about something else. So this is a new vendor that we're trying for the first time this year. They're called Trade Winds Fruit. And as far as I'm aware, they are in Southern California. So we've got a few different varieties of stuff that we're going to try from them this year. I've got a pack of pigeon peas. They are really interesting because instead of being an annual, like most things you grow in a vegetable garden, these can be a perennial. And it just depends on where you live and what kind of climate you have. So it is a part of the legume family, and it's closer to like a grain crop. So I would say it's similar probably to a black-eyed pea, but I can't say for sure because I've never tried them and I've never grown them. So maybe it's something that we can do later as an update video once we have something to show for it. But I'm excited to try because it's something we've never grown before. Another one that we've never grown before, but I do know they had in the time period, is strawberry spinach. It is a spinach type of plant as far as you can eat the greens. It's supposed to be similar in flavor to spinach, but it grows these little tiny red berries on there that you can also, they're edible and you can add them to salads and things like that. So again, haven't tried these before, so I don't know how successful we'll be, but very excited to try it. Got some more peppers for the Enslaved folks garden. Aji crystal pepper, and so this is something that's going to be one of the hot peppers we grow in there. It says it is a long 3.5 inch long pepper that ripens from green to yellow and then to bright red, waxy skin, very hot, so moderate hot heat. So that is something that we're going to be planting in the Enslaved folks garden. Got some more stuff that you'd see in there. This one's a really cool one. This seed packet is calling it horned melon. I've heard it called cucumber melon or jelly melon. It's something that we grow every year in our Enslaved folks garden, and they're really interesting because if you cut into it, you can kind of see it in the picture. On the inside, it's green and kind of juicy, for lack of a better word, kind of similar to a cucumber, but it's sweet like a melon. It's something that a lot of people have not really had the experience with, but this is really cool. And if you're into gardening, not so common things, this is an interesting one. Corn salad's another one that we grow in the Enslaved folks garden. It is also called matcha greens sometimes, depending on the seed vendor and where you're getting it from. But it's a leafy green that you can put in salads, and it's got kind of like a nutty flavor. So if you're getting tired of your plain just romaine salad, this is something cool to grow. Kind of like watercress has like its peppery flavor, and we grow a little bit of arugula, has a nice peppery flavor too. This one is a little bit milder and it's got that nutty flavor to it. So if you're into like layering flavors in salads and stuff, it's a really interesting one. Got some rutabagas. They're not terribly exciting, I suppose, but rutabagas are something that we grow usually in the fall in the English garden. Agrimony, that will be for our medicinal herb garden. And it says it's a classic European medicinal and magical herb, once used for a range of maladies. An herbaceous annual or perennial, growing to 3 to 4 feet, features yellow flower spikes and shrubby growth, hardy to zone 5. So agrimony is something that I know we've grown in the past. I don't think that we've been successful since the museum moved, and we moved from the farm being in one place to the farm being in another. So I'm hoping we can get this to come back and add this to our current rotation of stuff that goes in the herb garden. And dill is something that we grow every year. It's good for pickling, of course. It's good for flavoring it's just really tasty. So we try to grow that every year too. Some more pigeon peas and some more crystal peppers. So like I was saying, our last part of our seed order is a really huge chunk. I mean, like over 100 packs of seeds. So let me know in the comments if you really want a separate video to go into all of those. I'd be glad to do it. The company that we get a lot of the seeds from, because they have really good prices, really good germination rate, is Pine Tree Seeds. So I hope to see you next time. Thanks for joining me, and come and see us in person, of course, if you want to see some of this stuff as it is growing in the gardens. It's something that it's a great day trip for your family if you're local to the area. And if you're coming from far away and you're visiting the historic Triangle, you're coming to Colonial Williamsburg, you're coming to Jamestown Settlement, the American Revolution Museum at Yorktown is a great stop. Whether you're interested in gardening, you're interested in historic forms of warfare, or if you're just looking for something to do with the kids, we do a lot of hands-on stuff with the kids. So come out and see us, and thanks for joining us.